Everything is energy, and the way this energy flows through your life determines whether you ever discover your true purpose or remain lost in the illusion of modern existence. Take a moment right now, wherever you are. Feel the weight of your body, the subtle rhythm of your breath, the thoughts flowing through your mind. These sensations seem ordinary, but they're actually extraordinary signals trying to guide you towards something greater. I am about to share with you a revelation from one of history's most profound yet systematically hidden texts, a manuscript that explains why millions of people walk through life feeling disconnected, unfulfilled, and purposeless. This isn't just another self-improvement video. This is the unveiling of a forgotten truth that was intentionally buried because of its power to transform human consciousness. What if I told you that finding your purpose isn't about vision boards, career counseling, or personality tests? What if the real reason some people never find their purpose has nothing to do with laziness, bad luck, or a lack of talent, but instead involves an ancient understanding of human consciousness that predates our modern civilization by thousands of years? This ancient text, discovered in fragments across multiple archaeological sites and pieced together over decades by scholars who risked their reputations to study it, contains a profound insight. Purpose isn't something you find, it's something you remember. And the reason so many never discover it is that they've been systematically trained to forget who they truly are. Think about your life right now. The job you work, the relationships you maintain, the goals you pursue. How much of that truly resonates with your deepest self? Or are you simply following patterns established by society, family expectations, or fear-based thinking? Most people are living someone else's purpose, and that's why fulfillment always feels just out of reach. Today, we're going to break that pattern by exploring the wisdom of this ancient text and applying its insights to your life. I am going to walk you through exactly why some people seem naturally aligned with their purpose, while others search their entire lives and never find it. More importantly, I'll show you how to reconnect with a purpose that has been inside you all along. The text we're exploring today has been called by many names throughout history. Some know it as the Emerald Codex, others as the Book of Divine Remembrance. Its origins trace back to pre-dynastic Egypt, but versions of its core teachings have appeared in civilizations across the globe, from ancient Sumer to pre-Columbian America, from classical Greece to Thames Dynasty China. What makes this text remarkable isn't just its age or widespread influence, but the consistency of its central message despite being transmitted across vastly different cultures and time periods. This consistency suggests it wasn't merely authored by a single civilization, but instead preserves a fundamental truth about human consciousness that transcends cultural boundaries. The text begins with a deceptively simple statement: as within, so without, as above, so below. These words might seem like a poetic flourish, but they contain the first key to understanding why purpose remains elusive for so many. This principle explains that the universe operates as a series of reflections, microcosm mirroring macrocosm, with human consciousness serving as the bridge between inner and outer reality. According to the text, your external life precisely reflects your internal state, not as punishment or reward, but as a natural law of consciousness. Let this sink in for a moment. The text isn't suggesting that your thoughts occasionally influence your life. It's stating that your entire external reality, your career, relationships, opportunities, challenges all emerge directly from your internal state of being. This isn't wishful thinking or New Age philosophy. It's an ancient understanding of how consciousness interfaces with reality. Archaeological evidence suggests that ancient cultures built entire educational systems around this principle. From the mystery schools of Egypt to the philosophical academies of Greece, advanced civilizations recognized that aligning inner consciousness with outer purpose was the foundation of a meaningful life. Yet this wisdom was systematically removed from mainstream knowledge during multiple historical purges. The Library of Alexandria's destruction, medieval witch hunts, and colonial expansion all contributed to erasing this knowledge from our collective awareness. What remained was preserved in fragments, coded symbolism, and oral traditions passed down through secret societies and indigenous knowledge keepers. Today, we've inherited a world where purpose is treated as something external to be found, rather than an internal reality to be uncovered. This fundamental misunderstanding explains why so many people spend their lives searching but never finding what they're really looking for. According to the ancient text, every human being is born with an innate understanding of their purpose, their unique contribution to the unfolding of consciousness. Yet this understanding becomes obscured as we develop, covered by what the text calls the three veils of forgetting. These veils don't descend all at once, but layer upon our consciousness gradually, each one further disconnecting us from our authentic purpose. Understanding these veils is crucial because they explain precisely why some people never discover their true calling. The first veil: societal conditioning. The text describes this initial veil as the net cast by others to shape the waters of your being. This poetic language refers to the social conditioning we all undergo from birth, being told who we are, what we should value, and how we should live. Think about it. Before you could even speak, people were already defining your identity. Your family assigned meanings to your behaviors. Your education system channeled you toward standardized outcomes. Media and culture showed you acceptable paths to follow. All of this programming occurred before you had the cognitive ability to question it. This isn't a conspiracy, it's a natural function of human society. But the ancient text warns that this conditioning creates the first barrier between you and your authentic purpose. When your self-concept is built entirely from external definitions, how can you possibly hear the quiet voice of your true calling? Research at Harvard Medical School has shown that children as young as 3 years old already show signs of having internalized societal expectations about their behaviors and capabilities. Before we can even articulate who we are, the first veil is already in place. The second veil, false identity. The second veil forms as we develop what the text calls a phantom self, an identity constructed to navigate the world successfully. This is what modern psychologists might call the ego or persona, not your authentic self, but a character you play to function in society. This veil thickens each time you deny your true feelings to fit in, suppress your natural talents, because they don't seem practical, or make choices based on what will win you approval rather than what resonates deeply. Over time, you begin to mistake this phantom self for your actual identity. The text explains that this veil is particularly dangerous because it creates the illusion of self. You think you know who you are, preferences, strengths, and weaknesses, but what you're actually familiar with is the adapted personality you've developed to survive, not your essential nature. This explains why so many people feel a persistent sense of emptiness despite external success. Their achievements belong to the phantom self, while their authentic being remains unacknowledged and unfulfilled. Your purpose can never be fulfilled by your phantom self, because purpose doesn't belong to the persona, it belongs to your essential nature. The third veil, spiritual amnesia. The final and most profound veil is what the text calls the great forgetting, a state of disconnection from our spiritual nature. This veil represents our cultural shift away from understanding humans as multidimensional beings with both physical and non-physical aspects. Modern society treats consciousness as merely a byproduct of brain activity, but the ancient text presents a different view. Consciousness is primary, and physical reality emerges from it, not the other way around. When we forget this fundamental truth, we begin looking for purpose exclusively in the material world through career achievement, wealth accumulation, or social status. But according to the text, authentic purpose always contains a spiritual dimension, a connection to something larger than individual achievement. This explains why even tremendous success in worldly terms often fails to provide lasting fulfillment. If your sense of purpose doesn't connect to something transcendent, it will never satisfy your deepest longing for meaning. These three veils, societal conditioning, false identity, and spiritual amnesia, explain why purpose remains elusive for so many people. It's not that they lack purpose, it's that multiple layers of forgetting separate them from the truth that has been within them all along. The ancient text doesn't just explain why we lose connection with our purpose, it also provides clear indicators to help us recognize when we're misaligned with our authentic path. These signs appear as recurring patterns in our lives, signals that we're operating from our phantom self rather than our essential nature. Understanding these signs is crucial because they serve as wake-up calls, inviting us to look beneath the veils and reconnect with our true purpose. Let's explore each one. The first sign, persistent emptiness. The text describes this as a hollow feeling that no accomplishment can fill. This isn't occasional boredom or temporary dissatisfaction. It's a recurring sense that something fundamental is missing, regardless of external success or achievement. This emptiness persists because the phantom self can never be fulfilled no matter what it accomplishes. Think about it, you get the promotion, buy the house, win the award, and after a brief moment of satisfaction, the emptiness returns. This happens because achievements that don't align with your authentic purpose only feed your phantom identity, not your essential being. Modern psychology confirms this ancient wisdom. Studies show that extrinsic achievements provide only temporary happiness spikes before returning to baseline, while alignment with intrinsic values creates lasting fulfillment. The persistent emptiness isn't a personal failing, it's a signal that you're pursuing someone else's definition of success rather than your own authentic path. The second sign, chronic resistance. The text calls this the body's wisdom opposing the mind's deception. This manifests as procrastination, self-sabotage, fatigue, or illness when pursuing goals that don't align with your true purpose. Have you noticed how some tasks drain your energy completely, while others seem to energize you even when they require effort? According to the ancient text, this isn't random. Your body knows when you're moving against your authentic nature and creates resistance as a protective mechanism. This explains why willpower alone often fails to overcome procrastination. When you're forcing yourself to follow a path that contradicts your essential nature, no amount of discipline can eliminate the underlying resistance. Your body is literally trying to protect you from living someone else's purpose. The third sign, synchronistic disruptions. The text describes these as divine interventions, the universe conspiring to return you to your path. These appear as unexpected obstacles, apparent failures, or sudden changes that force you to reconsider your direction. Lost opportunities, relationships that end abruptly, projects that collapse despite your best efforts. These disruptions often feel like bad luck or personal failures, but the ancient text offers a different interpretation. They are course corrections from a universe that knows your authentic purpose better than your conscious mind does. Some of history's most purpose-driven individuals experienced major disruptions before finding their true calling. Gandhi was thrown off a train in South Africa, sparking his journey toward becoming a liberation leader. Oprah Winfrey was demoted from her news anchor position, leading her toward her revolutionary talk show format. These weren't simply setbacks but redirections toward authentic purpose. The fourth sign, the inner whisper. The final sign is described as the quiet voice that speaks when external noise subsides. This is the persistent intuition that something else is possible for your life, a subtle knowing that often contradicts logical arguments or conventional wisdom. Most people experience this whisper at some point, but many dismiss it as impractical daydreaming or wishful thinking. The ancient texts, however, identifies this whisper as the voice of your authentic purpose trying to break through the veils of forgetting. This inner voice often speaks through symbols, synchronicities, recurring dreams, or moments of unexpected clarity. It doesn't shout but persists quietly beneath the mental chatter of daily life. According to the text, learning to recognize and trust this voice is essential to reconnecting with your authentic purpose. These four signs, persistent emptiness, chronic resistance, synchronistic disruptions, and the inner whisper, serve as navigational tools, helping you recognize when you've strayed from your authentic path and providing clues for finding your way back. Here's where the ancient text offers its most radical insight. What most people call finding their purpose is actually a subtle trap, another layer of conditioning disguised as freedom. Modern culture has commodified purpose into yet another external achievement, something to be found, acquired, or accomplished. We're told to discover our passion, find our calling, or create our legacy. But notice how all these phrases frame purpose as something separate from who we already are. The text warns against this understanding, stating, "The seeker who searches outside himself pursues his own shadow, forever moving just beyond his grasp." This means that treating purpose as something external to be discovered actually perpetuates the very disconnection it claims to resolve. This creates what the text calls the illusion of purpose, the belief that your meaning and fulfillment lies somewhere in the future, contingent on finding some external role, contribution, or achievement that will finally make your life worthwhile. This illusion keeps you permanently searching, never arriving. Consider how this plays out in modern life. People bounce between careers, relationships, and locations, always hoping the next change will bring the fulfillment they seek. They read books, attend workshops, and consume endless content about finding their purpose. Yet with each new approach, the goal remains elusive, always just around the next corner. The text explains that this persistent searching actually strengthens the veils of forgetting. The more you look outside yourself for purpose, the more you reinforce the belief that your authentic self is insufficient as it is. This creates a painful paradox where the very quest for purpose becomes another barrier to experiencing it. Even more insidious is how the modern personal development industry has turned purpose into a marketplace. Finding your purpose isn't just presented as a personal journey, but as something you need expert guidance, special programs, and particular products to achieve. Your deepest existential longing becomes another opportunity for consumption. The ancient text presents a fundamentally different understanding. Purpose isn't something you find. It's what remains when you stop looking. It is not about discovering some perfect external expression, but about removing the layers that prevent you from recognizing what has been true all along. This doesn't mean abandoning meaningful work or contribution. Rather, it inverts the sequence we've been taught. Instead of finding your purpose and then experiencing fulfillment, you reconnect with your essential nature first, and purposeful action naturally flows from that reconnection. This understanding liberates us from the endless searching that characterizes modern life. The text states, "When the seeker realizes he is that which he seeks, the search ends and true purpose begins." This isn't a riddle or mystical paradox, it's a practical insight about how authentic purpose actually emerges. Having exposed the illusions that keep us disconnected from purpose, the ancient text presents what it calls the 9 remembrances. Practices designed to pierce the veils of forgetting and reconnect us with our essential nature. These are ERT techniques for finding purpose, but remembrances that help us recognize the purpose that has always been present. Each remembrance addresses a specific veil and restores an aspect of our authentic being. Let's explore them one by one. The first remembrance: still the waters to see your true reflection. The waters must be still. This first practice focuses on quieting the constant mental chatter that drowns out your inner wisdom. The text explains that purpose isn't hidden from us. It's simply overshadowed by mental noise. This isn't just about traditional meditation, though that's one approach. The text describes various ways to still the mental waters: immersion in nature, rhythmic movement, creative flow states, or simply sitting in silence. The key is regularly creating space where the mind's constant commentary subsides. Neurological research confirms the wisdom of this practice. Studies show that the default mode network brain regions active during self-referential thinking quiets during meditative states, allowing new neural connections to form. This literally creates the conditions for new insights and perspectives to emerge. The second, remembrance. Question the known. What you believe you already know is the veil over what you must discover. This practice involves systematically questioning your assumptions, particularly about who you are and what's possible for your life. The text suggests regularly asking, how do I know this is true about your core beliefs, especially those about your capabilities, preferences, and limitations? Many of these beliefs were installed during childhood or adopted unconsciously from culture. Questioning them creates openings for your authentic nature to reveal itself. This isn't intellectual skepticism but honest inquiry. When you genuinely question beliefs like I am not creative, or financial success requires sacrifice, you often discover they're based on limited experience or others' opinions rather than inherent truth. The third, remembrance. Follow energy. The body's wisdom precedes the mind's understanding. This practice involves using your physical and emotional responses as guidance systems for alignment with purpose. The text teaches that your body knows your authentic path before your mind does, expressing this knowledge through energy, enthusiasm, and aliveness. Activities aligned with your true purpose energize you even when difficult, while misaligned paths drain you even when easy. This isn't just about doing what feels good, in a superficial sense. It's about recognizing the difference between genuine aliveness and temporary pleasure or comfort. The text suggests regularly asking, does this bring me energy or drain it, as a compass for navigating toward authentic purpose. The fourth, remembrance. Embrace disruption. What appears as obstacle often serves as doorway, instead of resisting life's disappointments and disruptions. This practice involves recognizing them as potential redirections toward authentic purpose. The text teaches that our phantom self creates plans based on limited understanding, while our essential nature operates with broader wisdom. When plans collapse or expectations aren't met, it often indicates our phantom self's agenda being overridden by deeper wisdom. This doesn't mean passively accepting all circumstances as fate. Rather, it means approaching disruptions with the question, what might this be making space for, instead of simply trying to overcome them through force of will. The fifth, remembrance. Release. Comparison. Each vessel is shaped to carry specific waters. This practice involves letting go of comparing your path to others' journeys and recognizing the unique shape of your own purpose. The text explains that authentic purpose is precisely fitted to your specific combination of gifts, experiences, and essence. Comparing your path to others creates confusion and misalignment, because you are using external metrics for an internal reality. This remembrance involves practicing appreciation for others' paths without feeling compelled to imitate them. It means recognizing that the specificity of your purpose, including its challenges and limitations, is exactly what makes it authentic to you. The sixth, remembrance. Court mystery. Certainty is the enemy of becoming. This practice involves cultivating comfort with none and remaining open to possibilities beyond your current understanding. The text explains that authentic purpose often requires moving beyond the boundaries of what you can currently conceive. Your phantom self seeks certainty and clear outcomes, while your essential nature thrives in the fertile ground of open possibility. This remembrance involves regularly asking, what if I do not know what is best for me, and allowing answers to emerge organically rather than forcing conclusions. It means making space for mystery as an essential element of the purposeful life. The seventh, remembrance. Serve what's needed. Purpose flows toward genuine need, like water follows natural contours. This practice involves shifting focus from self-expression to response, from what do I want to create, to what is genuinely needed here. The text explains that authentic purpose always exists in relationship, responding to actual needs rather than abstract ideals. By attending to what's genuinely needed in your relationships, community, and world, you naturally align with purposeful action. This doesn't mean abandoning your own needs or becoming a martyr. Rather, it suggests that authentic purpose emerges at the intersection of your natural gifts and the world's genuine needs, not from ego-driven ambition or abstract self. The eighth, remembrance. Honor the cycles. Purpose unfolds in seasons, not in linear progression. This practice involves recognizing and respecting the natural cycles of activity and rest, expansion and contraction, clarity and confusion that characterize authentic purpose. The text explains that purpose isn't a static destination but a dynamic unfolding that includes periods of apparent dormancy, confusion, or retreat. These aren't failures of purpose but essential phases in its natural expression. This remembrance involves letting go of constant forward momentum as the only measure of purposeful living. It means recognizing that fallow periods, times of reflection, and even phases of deconstruction are all essential to authentic purpose. The ninth, remembrance. Embrace paradox. True purpose lives in the both and not in the either-or. This final practice involves transcending binary thinking and embracing the paradoxical nature of authentic purpose. The text explains that purpose often contains apparent contradictions. It's both deeply personal and transpersonal, both actively pursued and passively received, both already complete and eternally unfolding. The phantom self seeks a resolution of these tensions, while the essential nature comfortably holds them. This remembrance involves practicing both and thinking, looking for how apparent opposites might both be true simultaneously. It means recognizing that authentic purpose often transcends logical categories and linear explanations. These 9 remembrances are non-sequential steps, but ongoing practices that gradually pierce the veils of forgetting and restore your connection to authentic purpose. They don't require special circumstances or credentials, just consistent attention and honest engagement. As we approach our conclusion, the ancient text reveals its most profound insight, what it calls the Great Reversal. This is the fundamental shift in perspective that happens when the veils of forgetting begin to lift and authentic purpose reveals itself. The text describes this shift with a beautiful metaphor. The seeker who searched the horizons finally turns and sees his own face reflected in still waters. In that moment, he realizes he never lost his way, he had only forgotten how to recognize home. This reversal completely transforms how we understand purpose. Instead of being something we acquire or achieve, purpose becomes something we remember and embody. Instead of being a destination we reach, it becomes the ground we stand on. Instead of being a future promise, it becomes a present reality. This shift happens in stages, not all at once. The text describes 3 key reversals that mark the journey back to authentic purpose. The first reversal, from seeking to recognizing. Initially, we approach purpose as something to find. We look for signs, test different paths, and seek confirmation from others. But the first reversal happens when we realize that what we are re-seeking is external at all. It's a recognition of what has always been true. This doesn't mean abandoning action or exploration. Rather, it changes the quality of our engagement from desperate seeking to curious recognition. We stop asking, "What is my purpose?" and start noticing when we feel most authentically ourselves. The question becomes, when do I feel most aligned with my essential nature, rather than what should I do with my life? The second reversal, from achievement to embodiment. In conventional thinking, purpose is about what you accomplish, the visible impact you make, the legacy you leave. But the second reversal happens when you realize that authentic purpose is more about how you embody your essential nature than what you achieve through it. This doesn't mean abandoning meaningful goals or contributions. Rather, it shifts the primary focus from outcomes to presence, from what your actions produce to the quality of being you bring to each moment. Purpose becomes less about what you do and more about how fully you show up in whatever you're doing. The text explains this beautifully. The tree's purpose is not merely in its fruit, but in its complete expression of trees, its roots reaching, its branches stretching, its leaves transforming light. The fruit emerges not from striving, but from wholehearted being. The third reversal, from personal to transpersonal. Perhaps the most profound shift happens when we realize that authentic purpose is not actually about us as separate individuals. The text explains that true purpose always connects us to something larger than our personal identity or achievement. This doesn't mean your unique gifts and expression don't matter. Rather, it places them in a larger context as part of an unfolding that extends beyond your individual life. Purpose becomes not just what gives your life meaning, but how your life participates in something meaningful beyond itself. This reversal transforms success and failure alike. Apparent failures may perfectly serve this larger unfolding, while apparent successes might actually divert it. Your criteria for evaluation shift from personal gain or achievement to alignment with something greater than yourself. These 3 reversals, from seeking to recognizing, from achievement to embodiment, and from personal to transpersonal, constitute what the text calls the Great Reversal. Together, they completely transform how we understand and experience purpose. Instead of being a problem to solve, purpose becomes a reality to live. Instead of being a burden of expectation, it becomes an invitation to presence. Instead of being about what makes you special, it becomes about how you participate in the larger unfolding of life itself. As we conclude our exploration of this ancient wisdom, let us address the practical question: how do we live differently once we begin remembering our authentic purpose? The text answers with remarkable simplicity. Live as if you remember, even before full remembrance comes. The practice of living as if will itself become the bridge between forgetting and remembering. This isn't about pretending or positive thinking. It's about orienting your life around what feels most authentic and alive, even when the full picture of your purpose remains unclear. It's about treating purpose not as a distant goal, but as a present practice, something you cultivate through daily choices, rather than discover once and for all. The text offers 3 principles for living the remembered life. First, prioritize presence over planning. While goals and visions have their place, authentic purpose emerges most clearly in moments of deep presence. Practice bringing your full attention to whatever you're doing, whoever you're with, and whatever you're experiencing. Purpose reveals itself in the quality of your engagement with the now, not in elaborate plans for the future. Second, Follow aliveness rather than obligation. Notice what brings you genuine energy, curiosity, and engagement, not just temporary excitement or pleasure, but deep, sustainable aliveness. Make small choices each day that honor this aliveness, even when they don't make logical sense or align with others' expectations. Third, practice both giving and receiving. Authentic purpose involves both contributing your gifts and remaining receptive to life's guidance. Many people overemphasize one at the expense of the other, either constantly giving without receiving or passively waiting without offering. The remembered life requires both active expression and open reception. These principles aren't complicated, but they run counter to much of what modern society teaches about purpose and success. They invite us to trust our direct experience over external validation, internal aliveness over social expectations, and present engagement over future promises. The text ends with a powerful reminder. Those who never find their purpose are not those who lack gifts or opportunities. They are those who continue searching outside for what already lives within. The greatest tragedy is not a life without purpose, but a purposeful life unlived, because the seeker never stopped to recognize what was already there. This is the choice we all face: to continue the external search for purpose or to begin the journey of remembering what we've always known beneath the veils of forgetting. The ancient text doesn't promise that this remembering will be easy or instant. It may take years of practice and encounter many obstacles. But it insists that this journey of remembrance is not just possible, but is actually our birthright, the most natural thing in the world once we stop fighting against our own essential nature. The purpose you seek has never been lost. It has only been forgotten. And in the quiet moments when the veils of forgetting temporarily lift, moments of deep connection, creative flow, or unexpected clarity, you catch glimpses of what you've always known. These moments aren't anomalies. They are remembrances of your true nature breaking through. The journey back to authentic purpose isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've been all along. And that remembering begins right now, in this moment, with a simple choice to trust what feels most real and alive within you. Even if you can't yet name it or explain it, your purpose is not waiting to be discovered. It's waiting to be remembered. And the remembering begins now. While the ancient text reveals the path to remembering our purpose, it also warns of a significant obstacle that most spiritual teachings overlook: what it calls the shadow of purpose. This shadow emerges not from our resistance to purpose, but, paradoxically, from our desperate desire to find it. The text explains. The seeker who grasps too tightly at purpose creates a shadow, a distortion born of fear rather than love, of separation rather than wholeness. This shadow manifests in several recognizable patterns that often masquerade as authentic purpose, but actually keep us further from it. Understanding these shadows helps us avoid the traps that many spiritual seekers fall into. The first shadow is what the text calls purpose as escape, using the search for meaning as a way to avoid facing difficulties in your current reality. How many people dream of finding their purpose as a way to escape an unfulfilling job, a challenging relationship, or the ordinary struggles of daily life? This shadow turns purpose into a fantasy future that never arrives, because it is not actually about purpose, it is about escape. The text warns, the seeker who uses purpose as a doorway out of present difficulty finds that the door leads only to another room of avoidance. The second shadow is purpose as specialness, the belief that your purpose must mark you as extraordinary, exceptional, or better than others. This shadow reveals itself in the constant comparison with others' achievements and the nagging feeling that your purpose is ungrand enough to be worth. Look at how modern culture reinforces this shadow. We celebrate the rare individual with world-changing impact, while implicitly devaluing the quiet, essential purposes that sustain communities and nurture life. The text counters this shadow with remarkable clarity. The flower does not question whether its blossoming is significant enough. Its purpose is not in being better than other flowers, but in expressing its unique nature completely. The third shadow is purpose as certainty, the demand for absolute clarity and guaranteed outcomes before fully committing to your path. This shadow reveals itself in endless preparation, research and planning without decisive action. It shows up as waiting for perfect certainty before making changes or taking risks. The text addresses this shadow directly. The bird does not wait until it understands wind currents perfectly before opening its wings. It learns to fly by flying. Authentic purpose embraces uncertainty as part of its unfolding rather than demanding complete foreknowledge. The fourth shadow is purpose as permanence, the belief that true purpose must be unchanging throughout life. This shadow creates resistance to the natural evolution of purpose across different life seasons and circumstances. The text uses a powerful metaphor to counter this shadow. The river's purpose changes as it flows, from rushing torrent in the mountains to meandering curves in the valleys too wide, slow power at its delta. Yet it is always the same river, always expressing its essential nature despite changing forms. The final and perhaps most insidious shadow is purpose as postponement, using the search for purpose as a reason to delay fully engaging with life now. This shadow manifests as statements like "I'll be ready to really live once I find my purpose," or I'll commit fully when I am certain of my path. The text counters this shadow with one of its most direct statements. Life does not wait for purpose to be discovered before it unfolds. Each moment lived without presence is a moment lost, regardless of whether you have named your purpose or not. These shadows don't mean the search for purpose is inherently flawed. Rather, they reveal how easily our phantom self can co-opt even spiritual seeking for its own agendas of safety, specialness, and control. Recognizing these shadows isn't cause for discouragement but for honest self. The text offers a simple question to help identify whether you're refollowing authentic purpose or its shadow. Does this path lead to greater presence, connection, and openness, or does it lead to more mental activity, comparison, and contraction? Authentic purpose always expands our capacity for presence and connection, while the shadow of purpose contracts us into mental churning, self-preoccupation, and separation from life as it is now. The ancient text speaks of individuals throughout history who fully remembered and embodied their authentic purpose not as a concept but as a lived reality. It calls these individuals the remembered ones, or the masters of presence. Though most left no written teachings and sought no recognition, what distinguished these forgotten masters was supernatural power or extraordinary achievement, but something both simpler and more profound: complete alignment between their essential nature and their outer expression. The text describes them as those whose inner and outer worlds have become one. No division remains between who they are and what they do. These masters came from all walks of life and cultures. They weren't all spiritual teachers or obvious leaders. The text mentions farmers whose connection to the land was so complete that crops thrived under their care beyond all explanation. It speaks of craftspeople whose creations carried an inexplicable aliveness because they worked in perfect harmony with their materials. It describes parents whose presence was so complete that their children developed extraordinary capacities for love and creativity. What united these diverse individuals was not outer accomplishment, but in a remembrance they had pierced the veils of forgetting and remembered their true nature so completely that purpose was no longer something they sought but simply what flowed through them naturally. The text shares stories of these forgotten masters not to elevate them as superhuman but to remind us that complete remembrance is both possible and natural. One story tells of a simple baker whose bread carried such nourishment that people would travel days just to eat it, not knowing why it affected them so deeply. When asked his secret, he replied, "There is no secret. When I make bread, there is only bread making. No baker separate from baking remains." Another account describes a teacher who rarely spoke yet whose silent presence catalyzed profound transformation in her students. When questioned about her methods, she answered, "I do not teach. I have simply remembered who I am so completely that others remember to when they are near." Perhaps most striking is the story of a community healer who, when praised for his remarkable abilities, laughed and said, "I have no abilities. I have only removed the obstacles to what naturally flows through all life. You call this special only because you have forgotten what is normal." These forgotten masters shared several qualities that the text identifies as markers of complete remembrance. First, they exhibited extraordinary presence and unusual quality of attention that made others feel fully seen and recognized. This was a technique they practiced, but the natural result of no longer being divided between phantom self and essential nature. Second, they showed remarkable absence of self, not as a moral achievement of selflessness, but as the natural result of no longer experiencing themselves as separate entities whose interests could be divided from the whole. Third, they demonstrated unusual effectiveness with minimal effort, what Chinese traditions call wu wei or effortless action. Their actions achieved remarkable results not through force or strain, but through perfect alignment with the natural flow of energy and circumstances. Fourth, they displayed spontaneous compassion that was uncalculated or practiced, but flowed naturally from recognizing no fundamental separation between themselves and others. The text describes this as love without lover or beloved, simply love expressing itself through a human form. Finally, they embodied paradoxical qualities that usually appear separately, being both gentle and powerful, both playful and serious, both ordinary and extraordinary. These seeming contradictions could coexist because they had transcended the dualistic thinking that sees such qualities as opposed. The text emphasizes that these masters weren't perfect or infallible. They experienced the full range of human emotions and faced the same physical limitations as everyone else. What distinguished them was under freedom from human experience but complete presence within it. They no longer resisted any aspect of life but met each moment with full participation. Most significantly, these forgotten masters rarely claimed special status or gathered large followings. Many lived seemingly ordinary lives, recognized only by those who encountered them directly. The text explains, "The fully remembered one has no need to declare remembrance. Like the sun, they simply shine, unconcerned whether anyone attributes the light and warmth to them." This pattern explains why history records so few of these complete embodiments of purpose. Our historical accounts favor those who claimed special status or created lasting organizations, precisely what the truly remembered ones had no interest in doing. The text suggests that these forgotten masters have existed in every time period and culture, often unrecognized except by those directly touched by their presence. They weren't rarities but representatives of our natural states when the veils of forgetting are completely dissolved. This teaching offers profound remembrance of purpose is unto supernatural achievement but our natural condition when artificial barriers are removed. The forgotten masters weren't superhuman. They were simply fully human, expressing without obstruction what all humans essentially are. At this point in the text, a remarkable revelation occurs when that fundamentally challenges our common understanding of purpose. The text calls this the great misconception and identifies it as the primary reason why purpose remains elusive for so many. The misconception is this: we believe purpose is primarily about doing when it's actually about being. This simple error creates endless confusion and suffering. We search endlessly for the right action, career, contribution, or impact, believing these external expressions constitute purpose itself. But according to the ancient text, these are merely secondary effects, the natural overflow of a more fundamental alignment. The text explains, purpose is not first a doing but a quality of being. The doing emerges naturally when being is aligned with its true nature. Those who seek purpose through action alone search endlessly because they address the symptom rather than the source. This misconception appears in nearly every modern discussion of purpose. We ask, what should I do with my life, rather than how can I align my being with its true nature. We seek purpose through external markers, career satisfaction, social impact, creative expression, rather than internal alignment. To illustrate this distinction, the text uses the metaphor of a musical instrument. A well-made instrument naturally produces beautiful music when played with skill. One cannot create good music with a misaligned instrument, no matter how skilled the player. Similarly, aligned being naturally produces purposeful doing without strain or confusion. This doesn't mean action and contribution aren't important. Rather, it suggests they emerge naturally from something more fundamental, the alignment of being with its essential nature. When this alignment is present, purposeful action flows without the agonizing questions and doubts that characterize most purpose-seeking. The text identifies 3 levels of purpose that correspond to increasing depths of remembrance. The first level is purpose as role, identifying with specific functions, contributions, or achievements. This includes career identities, relationship roles, creative expressions, and social contributions. While legitimate, this level remains vulnerable to external changes and often creates suffering when circumstances prevent fulfillment of the identified role. The second level is purpose as quality, recognizing the essential qualities your being naturally expresses when aligned with its true nature. These might include qualities like truth, beauty, connection, understanding, or healing. This level transcends specific roles, allowing the same essential qualities to express through varied activities and circumstances. The third and deepest level is purpose as essence, directly experiencing yourself as inseparable from the unfolding of life itself. At this level, purpose is not something you have, but what you are, unique expression of the same consciousness that animates all existence. This level transcends both roles and qualities, recognizing them as varied expressions of the same underlying essence. Most purpose-seeking never goes beyond the first level, creating inevitable suffering when circumstances change or roles become unavailable. Some teachings reach the second level, offering greater flexibility and resilience, but the ancient text insists that only the third level, purpose as essence, provides complete freedom from the anguish of misidentification. The text offers a striking example. The flower's purpose includes producing beauty, providing nectar for bees, and eventually creating seeds. These are its roles. Its qualities include color, fragrance, and particular patterns of growth, but its essence purpose is to be the unique expression of life that it is, something no separate role or quality can fully capture. Similarly, human purpose operates at all 3 levels, but lasting fulfillment comes only from recognizing the most fundamental level, purpose as essence. From this recognition, appropriate roles and qualities emerge naturally without the agonizing search that kept conventional, purpose-seeking. This understanding resolves many common purpose dilemmas. For example, why do some people feel purposeful despite humble circumstances, while others feel empty despite impressive achievements? The former have connected to purpose as essence, while the latter remain identified only with purpose as role. Why does purpose often seem to evolve and change throughout life? Because specific roles and expressions naturally shift while the underlying essence remains constant, finding new channels for its expression. Why do efforts to find purpose often lead to more confusion rather than clarity? Because they typically focus on external roles rather than internal alignment with essential nature. The text offers a radical proposition. What if you're already living your purpose, but just don't recognize it because you're looking for it in the wrong place? What if purpose isn't something to achieve but something to remember and acknowledge? This doesn't mean passive acceptance of current circumstances. Rather, it suggests that recognition of your essential nature must precede, not follow, purposeful action. From that recognition, appropriate changes and contributions emerge naturally. without the tortured deliberation that characterizes most purpose-seeking. The text concludes this section with a profound statement. The search for purpose is itself based on a fiction, the belief that you exist separate from your purpose, that it is something to find rather than what you already are. This single misconception creates endless seeking that can never be fulfilled because it misunderstands the very nature of what is sought. Moving beyond conventional understanding, the ancient text describes purpose as having quantum properties, two principles that seem paradoxical from our everyday perspective but perfectly align with modern quantum physics discoveries. The text explains, purpose exists in superposition, simultaneously specific and universal, determined and free, individual and collective. Those who insist on classical either or definitions remain caught in contradiction and confusion. This quantum understanding resolves many apparent paradoxes about purpose that create suffering for modern seekers. Let's explore these quantum properties and their practical implications. First, purpose exists in superposition. Like Schrödinger's famous cat that is both alive and dead until observed, your purpose exists in all its potential expressions simultaneously. The specific expression that manifests depends on observation, where and how you place your attention. This explains why purpose can feel both absolutely determined and completely free. From one perspective, your authentic purpose is already established as your unique essence. From another perspective, that essence can express through infinite potential forms depending on circumstances and choices. The text uses water as a metaphor. Water's nature is to flow downhill, but the specific path it takes depends on the terrain it encounters. Similarly, your essential nature has definite qualities, but how they express depends on the circumstances of your life. The expression is variable while the essence remains constant. Second, purpose demonstrates entanglement, what quantum physicists call non-local correlation between seemingly separate particles. Your purpose isn't isolated but exists in relationship to all other beings and their purposes. The text explains, no purpose exists in isolation. Each authentic purpose supports and enhances all others, just as each note in harmony enriches the whole. Those who believe their purpose competes with others misunderstand its fundamental nature. This entanglement explains why authentic purpose always benefits the whole, not just the individual. It is not because purpose requires self-sacrifice, but because the distinction between self and other becomes increasingly permeable as veils of forgetting lift. What benefits the whole naturally benefits the parts, and vice versa. Third, purpose exhibits wave-particle duality, simultaneously existing as specific expression and field of probability. Like light, which behaves as both a particle and a wave depending on how it's measured, purpose manifests as both specific actions and an infinite field of potential. The text describes this duality. Your purpose is both the specific manifestation in this moment and the field of all potential manifestations across time. When aligned with essence, you navigate this field naturally, drawn toward the manifestations that most fully express your authentic nature. This duality explains why purpose feels both absolutely specific, this exact expression and no other, and completely open, infinite possibilities for expression. Both perceptions are simultaneously true from different perspectives. Fourth, purpose demonstrates the observer effect, the way observation itself influences what is observed. In quantum physics, the mere act of measurement affects the behavior of subatomic particles. Similarly, how you observe and interpret your life fundamentally shapes how purpose manifests within it. The text explains, the seeker who anxiously looks for a grand purpose finds either inflated fantasy or deflating inadequacy. The one who gratefully recognizes purpose in ordinary moments finds extraordinary depth in everyday experience. What you seek determines what you find. This effect explains why some people discover profound purpose in seemingly humble circumstances, while others feel empty despite impressive achievements. The difference lies not in external circumstances but in the quality of attention brought to those circumstances. Finally, purpose exhibits quantum tunneling, the ability to move through barriers that appear impenetrable from a classical perspective. In quantum physics, particles can sometimes pass through energy barriers that should theoretically be impossible to penetrate. The text describes this property. Authentic purpose sometimes manifests through apparent impossibilities. Precisely when barriers seem most absolute, what cannot be accomplished through force of will often occurs naturally through alignment with deeper currents. This explains the common experience of purpose finding unexpected paths of expression when obvious routes are blocked. What seems like an absolute obstacle from the perspective of the phantom self often becomes a doorway from the perspective of essential nature. These quantum properties of purpose are not just theoretical abstractions but practical realities that explain why conventional approaches to purpose often fail. Linear thinking, rigid planning, and binary either or frameworks simply can't capture the quantum nature of authentic purpose. The text offers guidance for working with these quantum properties. Do you not try to force quantum reality into classical containers? Instead, learn to navigate by different principles: superposition rather than fixity, entanglement rather than separation, probability rather than certainty, influence rather than control, permeability rather than solidity. This quantum understanding liberates us from many common purpose anxieties. The anxiety of choosing one path and thereby excluding others. The fear that your purpose might harm others or require selfishness. The pressure to define purpose with absolute clarity. Before acting, the belief that external circumstances determine whether purpose is possible. The conviction that certain barriers make purpose impossible. The text concludes this section with a powerful statement. Most seek purpose within the limitations of classical thinking, where paradox appears as contradiction and simultaneous truths seem impossible. But purpose exists in quantum reality, where paradox is natural and seeming contradictions reveal deeper truth. Learn to think quantum, and purpose becomes not a problem to solve, but a mystery to live. Having explored the quantum nature of purpose, the ancient text now presents what it calls the 7 gateways of integration, specific life domains, where remembrance of authentic purpose can be practically applied and embodied. These gateways aren't separate from purpose, but channels through which it naturally The text explains. Purpose isn't separate from life, but flows through life's natural channels. These 7 gateways are where essence meets existence, where the invisible becomes visible through everyday expressions. The first gateway, vocation. The text begins with vocation, not just career or paid work, but any regular activity that engages your energy and attention. This gateway often receives disproportionate focus in modern purpose discussions, creating imbalance and pressure. The text reframes vocation. Work becomes sacred not through its content but through the presence you bring to it. Any activity can be a vessel for purpose when approached with full being. No activity can fulfill purpose when approached with divided attention. This understanding liberates us from the false binary of meaningful work versus meaningless work. The text suggests that authenticity matters more than specific activities. Better to clean floors with complete presence than to heal the sick with divided attention. Purpose flows through the quality of being, not the category of doing. This doesn't mean settling for unfulfilling work. Rather, it means recognizing that alignment with purpose and vocation comes through matching your authentic qualities with compatible activities, not through finding some perfect predetermined role. The second gateway, creation. The second gateway involves bringing something new into existence, not just art in the conventional sense, but any act of creation. From cooking a meal to raising a child, from writing code to tending a garden. The text explains that creation naturally emerges from aligned being. When essence flows unobstructed, it naturally takes form. Creation isn't something you do, but something that happens through you when internal barriers dissolve. This gateway involves recognizing yourself as a conduit rather than an originator, allowing purpose to flow through you into form rather than forcing form through effort and will. The text describes this as stepping aside while remaining fully present, creating without a creator. This understanding resolves much creative struggle. Creation becomes not a heroic act of individual will, but a receptive act of what wants to emerge to find expression through your particular form. The third gateway, relationship. The third gateway encompasses connection with others, not just intimate partnerships, but all human relationships, from family bonds to brief encounters with strangers. The text offers a radical perspective on relationship. Others are not separate entities, but mirrors reflecting different aspects of the same consciousness. Through authentic connection with others, you discover dimensions of yourself previously hidden from awareness. This gateway involves moving beyond transactional relationships based on need and expectation toward authentic connection based on recognition and presence. The text explains, in true relationship, purpose doesn't flow from you to another or from another to you, but through the field created between you. This understanding transforms relationship from a means of getting needs met to a context for mutual awakening. Purpose expresses, not just through what you give or receive, but through the quality of presence you bring to the connection itself. The fourth gateway, embodiment. The fourth gateway concerns physical existence, how purpose expresses through the body and its experiences, sensations, pleasures, and limitations. The text challenges mind-body dualism. The body isn't a vehicle that carries purpose, but a dimension through which purpose physical sensations, needs, and experiences aren't obstacles to purpose, but aspects of its manifestation. This gateway involves recognizing the wisdom and intelligence of the body itself, not just as an instrument of the mind, but as a direct expression of essence. The text explains, the body knows purpose before the mind can name it, expressing through energy, aliveness, and natural attraction toward what resonates with essence. This understanding heals the split between spiritual seeking and physical existence. Purpose flows not despite bodily reality, but through its including its pleasures, pains, limitations, and eventual death. The fifth gateway, service. The fifth gateway involves contributing to the welfare of others, not through self-sacrifice or moral obligation, but through natural response to perceived need. The text reframes service. True service is undoing good to feel good, but allowing essence to respond naturally to what is needed. It arises not from should or must, but from could and met, the natural overflow of aligned being. This gateway involves recognizing that authentic service benefits both giver and receiver simultaneously, transcending the false dichotomy between selfishness and selflessness, the text explains. In true service, there is no separate giver or receiver, only the flow of what is needed through the particular forms present. This understanding transforms service from moral duty to natural expression, not something you force yourself to do, but something that happens through you when artificial barriers between self and other dissolve. The sixth gateway. Learning the sixth gateway encompasses growth through experience, not just formal education, but the continuous expansion of awareness through all life encounters. The text describes this gateway. True learning is an accumulation of knowledge, but removal of obstacles to direct perception. It happens not by adding information, but by dissolving the veils that prevent clear seeing. This gateway involves approaching all experience, comfortable and uncomfortable, desired and unwanted, as context for expanded awareness. The text explains, nothing is purposeless when perceived as an opportunity for remembrance. Each experience, pleasant or painful, offers a doorway back to essence when met with presence. This understanding transforms obstacles and challenges from problems to be solved into invitations to be answered, not disruptions of purpose but essential aspects of its unfolding. The seventh gateway, integration. The final gateway involves bringing together all dimensions of experience into coherent wholeness, not by forcing unity but by recognizing the underlying connection already present. The text describes this gateway. Integration is something you achieve but something you allow. By removing the artificial divisions between aspects of life, it happens naturally when the same quality of presence flows through all expressions. This gateway involves recognizing that purpose isn't compartmentalized, different in work than in relationship, different in service than in creation. The text explains, the same water flows through different channels, taking the shape of each while remaining essentially unchanged. Similarly, authentic purpose maintains its essential quality while expressing through varied aspects of life. This understanding resolves the common fragmentation of modern existence, the sense of being different people in different contexts. Integration happens not through effort or achievement but through consistent remembrance of essential nature across all expression. The text concludes this section with an important insight. These seven gateways are separate domains but interconnected channels of the same flow. When purpose moves authentically through one gateway, all others naturally begin to align. Begin where access is easiest, and the others will gradually open in response. The ancient text concludes with what it calls the final revelation, truth so fundamental that it transforms everything previously understood about purpose. This revelation directly addresses the core question of why some people never find their purpose despite sincere seeking. The text states it plainly, there is no such thing as finding your purpose, because there is no such thing as losing it. What appears as purpose lost or unfound is actually essence forgotten or unrecognized. Nothing is missing but awareness itself. This revelation completely inverts the conventional framing. The question isn't how do I find my purpose, but what prevents me from recognizing the purpose that has always been present. The problem isn't absence but amnesia, not something missing but something forgotten. The text explains this with a powerful metaphor. Imagine a fish swimming desperately in search of water, asking every creature it meets where water might be found. The tragedy is that water is absent, but that the fish fails to recognize what already surrounds and sustains it, what it already intimately knows but has conceptually forgotten. Similarly, human beings search for purpose outside themselves, failing to recognize what already animates their existence, what they already express but have conceptually forgotten due to the veils we explored earlier. This final revelation contains three profound implications that transform how we approach purpose. First, purpose isn't acquired but remembered. This means the process isn't one of achievement through effort but recognition through attention. The text states, you cannot achieve what you already are. You can only clear away what obscures recognition of your essential nature. This explains why effort alone often fails to reveal purpose, while moments of deep presence and surrender sometimes bring unexpected clarity. Effort reinforces the phantom self's agenda and framework, while presence and surrender temporarily dissolve these artificial structures, allowing essential nature to reveal itself. Second, purpose isn't fixed but evolving. The text explains, essential nature remains constant while its expression continuously evolves to meet changing conditions. What changes isn't purpose itself but the form through which it expresses. This resolves the common anxiety about finding the one right purpose. By recognizing that authentic purpose maintains consistent qualities, while its specific expressions naturally evolve throughout life, like a river maintaining its essential nature while changing form from source to sea. Purpose maintains coherence through changing expressions. Third, purpose isn't future but present. The text emphasizes, purpose isn't something waiting to be discovered tomorrow, but something already expressing right now, whether recognized or not. The question isn't what will my purpose be, but how is my purpose already manifesting? even if partially or unconsciously. This transforms purpose-seeking from future-oriented striving to present-centered recognition, from when will I find my purpose, to how is purpose already expressing through my life, even in ways I haven't fully acknowledged. The text offers a practical approach to this recognition. Look for what expresses naturally through you when artificial constraints are temporarily removed. Notice what emerges in moments of flow, what persists across changing circumstances, what continues despite obstacles or lack of external reward. These persistent patterns reveal essential nature already expressing, not perfectly or completely due to the veils of forgetting, but authentically nonetheless. The path to fuller expression involves recognizing and nurturing these authentic expressions rather than searching for something entirely new or different. The text concludes with a response to the central question, why some people never find their purpose. Those who never find purpose are those who seek what is unlost, chase what isn't missing, and demand what's already given. Their tragedy is not failure to discover, but failure to recognize, not absence of purpose, but absence of awareness. This understanding completely transforms the journey. Instead of the anxious quest to find something missing, purpose becomes a process of remembering what is already present, of recognizing what has been expressing through your life all along, however partially or imperfectly due to the veils of forgetting. The final lines of the text offer both comfort and challenge. You have never been without purpose. Even in your most lost and confused moments, what you seek has always been seeking through you. The seeker and the sought are one reality, temporarily divided by forgetting. Remember this. And purpose is not found but recognized as what you have always been. We've journeyed through an ancient wisdom tradition that fundamentally challenges modern understanding of purpose. Rather than seeing purpose as something to find, achieve, or create, this tradition reveals it as something to remember, recognize, and embody. The veils of forgetting, societal conditioning, false identity, and spiritual amnesia explain why purpose remains elusive despite sincere seeking. The illusion of purpose as something external creates endless searching that can never be fulfilled, misunderstands the very nature of what is sought. The 9 remembrances offer practical approaches to piercing these veils and reconnecting with essential nature. The 7 gateways provide channels through which remembered purpose naturally expresses in everyday life, and the quantum properties of purpose explain. Conventional linear approaches so often fail to capture its paradoxical nature. The final revelation that purpose isn't lost but forgotten, not absent but unrecognized, completely transforms the journey from anxious seeking to present recognition. This ancient wisdom doesn't promise immediate clarity or perfect expression. The veils of forgetting are thick, and the dissolution requires ongoing practice and patience. But it does promise that what you seek is already present, already expressing, already alive within you, waiting not to be found but to be remembered. The text concludes with a simple invitation. Begin where you are. Notice what already expresses naturally through you. Remove one barrier to fuller expression. Take one step with greater presence. Purpose isn't waiting in some distant future, but breathing through this very moment, whether recognized or not. This isn't just ancient philosophy, but practical wisdom for modern seekers. In a culture obsessed with finding purpose as if it were a lost object, this tradition reminds us that what we seek has never been absent, only temporarily forgotten beneath veils of conditioning and separation. The remembrance has already begun. With each moment of presence, each act of authentic expression, each recognition of essential nature beneath phantom roles, purpose reveals itself not as something new, but as what has always been true. Remember who you are. And purpose is no longer something to find, but something to live, not tomorrow but now. Not partially but wholly, not despite limitations but through them. This remembrance is both the journey and the destination, both the seeking and the finding, both the question and the answer to why some find purpose while others search forever. The ancient text doesn't just explain why we lose connection with our purpose. It also maps the process of remembrance, what it calls the awakening. This isn't a single event but a journey through distinct phases, each with its own characteristics, challenges, and opportunities. Understanding this process helps normalize the experiences that often accompany purpose rediscovery. What might otherwise feel like confusion, regression, or failure reveals itself as a natural part of the remembering journey. The first phase, disturbance. The awakening process typically begins not with clarity but with this growing sense that something is you and right with your current life direction. The text describes this as the essential self beginning to stir beneath layers of forgetting. This disturbance might manifest as unexplained restlessness, depression without obvious cause, or sudden questioning of past that previously seemed certain. You might find yourself asking, is this all there is? Or feeling inexplicably drawn to new ideas or experiences that don't fit your established identity. The text explains, disturbance is a problem to be solved. But the first messenger of remembrance, what appears as breakdown, is actually breakthrough, beginning the essential self pushing against confining structures that no longer serve its expression. Many people misinterpret this phase, treating disturbance as a problem requiring immediate resolution. They might change jobs, relationships, or locations, seeking external solutions to what is actually an internal awakening. Others might suppress the disturbance through busyness, substances, or renewed commitment to existing patterns. The text advises a different approach. When disturbance comes, neither flee nor fight it. Instead, turn toward it with curiosity. Listen to what stirs beneath the discomfort. The question it raises matters more than any immediate answer. This phase might last weeks, months, or even years, depending on how you respond to its invitation. Those who turn toward disturbance with presence move naturally to the next phase, while those who resist often remain caught in cycles of increasing disruption followed by temporary relief through distraction or denial. The second phase, disorientation, if disturbance is met with presence rather than resistance. It naturally deepens into what the text calls the great disorientation, profound questioning of everything previously taken for granted about yourself and your life. This phase often brings identity crisis as the phantom self begins losing its dominance. Previous certainties about who you are, what you want, and where you're going dissolve into profound questioning. Values and motivations that drove decisions for years suddenly seem hollow or irrelevant. The text describes this phase like a traveler whose map is revealed as inaccurate. You can no longer navigate by familiar landmarks. What seemed solid becomes fluid. What appeared certain becomes questionable. This disorientation isn't confusion, but the necessary clearing of false certainties before true knowing can emerge. This phase often brings intense emotions, grief for identities and dreams being released, fear about an uncertain future, and sometimes anger toward systems or people who contributed to your forgetting. These emotions aren't obstacles, but part of the necessary clearing process. Many people try to escape disorientation by prematurely grabbing new certainty, switching one rigid identity for another, trading one dogma for a different one. Others become permanently cynical, rejecting all meaning rather than moving through disorientation toward deeper understanding. The text offers guidance. The temptation during disorientation is to seek immediate certainty, to replace old answers with new ones before the questioning has done its work. Resist this urge. Learn to stand in the open space of not knowing, for it is fertile ground from which authentic purpose emerges. This phase typically brings strong impulses to make external changes, leaving jobs, ending relationships, moving locations. While some changes may eventually be appropriate, the text cautions against using external changes to avoid internal transformation. Changing circumstances before inner clarity emerges often reproduces old patterns in new contexts. Let inner transformation lead. Outer changes will follow naturally when their time has come. The third phase, discovery. After fully experiencing disorientation without prematurely escaping it, the third phase naturally emerges, what the text calls the great discovery. This is you on finding something new but recognizing what has always been present beneath layers of conditioning and forgetting. This phase brings moments of clarity where you glimpse your essential nature beyond roles, achievements, and social identities. These glimpses might come during meditation, in nature, in creative flow, or in moments of deep connection with others. They're characterized by a sense of recognition, not learning something new but remembering something always known yet forgotten. The text describes these moments like remembering a dream upon awakening. Essential nature reveals itself not as stranger but as oldest friend, intimately familiar though long forgotten. These recognitions come with certainty beyond reasons, knowing beyond explanations. This phase isn't characterized by constant clarity, but by an increasing frequency of these recognition moments, interspersed with periods of continued questioning and integration. The phantom self doesn't disappear overnight. It gradually loses dominance as essential nature becomes more consistently recognized. Discoveries during this phase often include recognizing qualities that have always expressed through you, even when unacknowledged, seeing patterns of natural attraction and engagement across different life phases, understanding how apparent failures and setbacks served essential growth, perceiving the underlying coherence in what previously seemed like a random life path. The text emphasizes that authentic discovery feels liberating rather than burdensome. True purpose never feels like heavy obligation imposed from outside, but like natural expression freed from within. It doesn't drain energy but generates it. Doesn't require constant discipline but flows with natural momentum. Unlike the anxious searching that characterizes conventional purpose, this discovery brings a quality of relaxation, not lazy passivity, but the natural ease that comes from alignment with essential nature rather than struggling against it. The fourth phase, integration, the final phase of the awakening process, is what the text calls the great integration, bringing remembered purpose into consistent, embodied expression across all dimensions of life. This phase isn't about perfect achievement but about increasing alignment between inner recognition and outer expression. The text explains, integration doesn't mean flawless manifestation, but growing congruence between who you know yourself to be and how you live each day. The gap never closes completely in human form, but it narrows through conscious practice. Integration involves practical questions that weren't relevant during earlier phases. How does essential nature express through specific forms of contribution? What structures and practices support consistent alignment? How do relationships and environments either enhance or hinder authentic expression? What is being called for in this particular time and place? Unlike earlier phases focused primarily on inner recognition, integration engages actively with external circumstances, looking for appropriate vessels to hold and express what has been remembered. The text emphasizes that integration isn't about instant transformation, but gradual embodiment. Do you want to expect a complete transformation overnight? Integration happens step by step, choice by choice, gradually bringing the outer life into alignment with the inner remembrance. This phase often brings practical challenges as remembered purpose meets existing commitments, relationships, and circumstances. The text offers guidance. Integration doesn't require abandoning all existing forms but bringing new consciousness to them. Some structures will naturally fall away, others will transform, and new ones will emerge, but rushing this process creates unnecessary suffering. Integration isn't a final destination but an ongoing process that continues throughout life. The text explains. Integration never completes because life circumstances continuously change, requiring fresh expressions of the same essential nature. What remains constant isn't the form but the authenticity of expression. This understanding brings sustainable engagement with purpose, not as intense peak experience or dramatic transformation but as consistent alignment that grows deeper and more comprehensive over time. The text concludes its description of the awakening process with an important insight. These phases are not purely sequential but often spiral, with aspects of each phase recurring at deeper levels throughout life. What matters is you aren't reaching some final destination, but bringing presence to wherever you find yourself in the journey of remembrance. Having mapped the journey of remembrance, the ancient text now addresses a crucial element often missing from modern purpose discussions, what it calls the essential practice. This is not a technique for finding purpose, but a practice for remembering and embodying what has always been present. The text introduces this practice with striking directness. All techniques for finding purpose ultimately fail, because they reinforce the fundamental error that purpose is separate from your being, something to acquire rather than remember. There is only one essential practice: consistent, compassionate attention to what already is. This practice of presence, bringing full, non-judgmental attention to whatever arises in experience, serves as the foundation for all authentic purpose work. The text explains why presence dissolves the veils of forgetting, not by attacking them but by bringing light to their fundamental unreality. When fully present, you naturally remember what was never actually forgotten. Unlike complicated techniques or structured programs, this practice is simultaneously simple and challenging. Simple because it requires no special circumstances, equipment, or expertise, just the willingness to be fully present with whatever is. Challenging because it runs counter to habitual patterns of distraction, judgment, and identification with thought. The text describes how this practice works. Presence acts like sunlight on morning dew. The veils of forgetting don't need to be forcibly removed. When touched by the warmth of sustained attention, they naturally evaporate, revealing the clarity that was always there beneath them. This practice has three essential aspects that the text elaborates. The first aspect, embodied presence. The practice begins with grounding attention in sensory experience, feeling the body's sensations, hearing ambient sounds, seeing what's visually present without interpretation or story. The text explains. The phantom self lives in abstract thought, past regrets, future anxieties, conceptual identities. Essential nature reveals itself through direct experience of the present moment, where thinking becomes just one aspect of awareness rather than its entirety. This embodied presence isn't about ignoring thoughts, but about recognizing them as just one dimension of experience rather than its totality. Thoughts continue but are held in wider awareness that includes bodily sensations, sense perceptions, and energy movements that the thinking mind typically ignores. The text offers practical guidance. Several times each day, pause whatever you're doing and bring full attention to your sensory experience, the feeling of your body, the sounds around you, the visual field without naming what you see. Rest in this direct experience for even a few moments, and notice what shifts in your sense of self and reality. The second aspect, compassionate witnessing, building on embodied presence. The practice deepens through compassionate witnessing of whatever arises in emotions, sensations without judgment, resistance, or identification. The text explains. Witnessing creates space between awareness and experience. You recognize that you are not your thoughts, emotions, or sensations, but the awareness in which they appear. This witnessing is called detachment but compassionate, allowing letting each experience be exactly as it is without trying to change, fix, or escape it. The text describes this quality. Approach each arising, whether pleasant or painful, desired or unwanted, with the same gentle attention a loving parent gives a child, not to control or direct but to be fully present with whatever appears. This compassionate witnessing gradually dissolves identification with the phantom self. The text explains. When you witness thoughts without becoming them, emotions without being defined by them, and sensations without resistance, the phantom self loses its apparent solidity. What remains is awareness itself, your essential nature beyond all temporary appearances. The third aspect, open questioning. The practice culminates in what the text calls questioning that doesn't demand answers, bringing curious, open attention to the fundamental questions of existence without insisting on immediate resolution. The text explains, true questioning isn't problem-solving but wonder. It opens space for a direct recognition beyond conceptual understanding. Unlike analytical questioning that strengthens the phantom self through conceptual answers, this open questioning creates space for direct recognition of what analytical thinking can never capture. The text offers examples of such questions. Who or what is aware of this experience right now? What remains constant amidst all changing phenomena? What am I when I'm not defining myself? These questions are meant to produce intellectual answers, but to direct attention toward what cannot be grasped, conceptually the sensuous nature that contains all experience yet is uncontained by any of it. The text emphasizes that this questioning is separate from the previous aspects, but integrates them. Question while remaining embodied and witnessing compassionately. This prevents questioning from becoming merely intellectual and keeps it grounded in direct experience. The integration of the practice, these three aspects, embodied presence, compassionate witnessing, and open questioning, form a single integrated practice that the text calls the direct path of remembrance. This practice doesn't require special circumstances or dedicated time. Instead, it can be integrated into any activity, relationship, or circumstance. The text offers practical guidance. While driving, bring attention to the sensations of hands on the wheel and body in the seat. While conversing, witness your reactions without being fully identified with them. While working, occasionally question who or what is aware of both the work and the worker. These brief moments of remembrance gradually dissolve the veils of forgetting more effectively than occasional intense practices separated from daily life. This practice isn't about achieving special states, but about bringing clear seeing to ordinary experience. The text emphasizes the most profound purpose. Revelations often come not in dramatic visions or peak experiences, but in mundane moments illuminated by presence, washing dishes with full attention, listening to another without agenda, or simply resting as awareness without doing anything in particular. The text concludes its description of the essential practice with an important distinction. This practice is on something you do to eventually find purpose. It is purpose itself already expressing through you. Each moment of presence is a means to an end, but the actual embodiment of authentic purpose in that moment. This understanding transforms purpose from distant goal to present reality, not something to achieve tomorrow, but something to embody now, regardless of external circumstances or achievements. The text states, full presence in any activity, no matter how seemingly insignificant, is more aligned with authentic purpose than grand achievements performed with divided attention. The ancient text now reveals what it calls the forbidden truth, an understanding so radical that most spiritual and philosophical traditions either hint at it indirectly or actively conceal it. This truth directly addresses why purpose remains elusive despite seeking, why integration often remains incomplete despite genuine awakening, and why many spiritual traditions ultimately fall short of delivering the freedom they promise. The text introduces this forbidden truth with solemn warning. What follows will contradict most teachings about purpose, identity, and spiritual development. It may initially appear dangerous, unsettling, or contrary to common wisdom. Yet until this truth is directly recognized, purpose remains a phantom chased but never embraced. This forbidden truth is stated directly. There is no separate self who has or finds a purpose. What we call my purpose is actually universal purpose expressing through a particular form. The seeker and the sought are not two separate entities, but one reality, temporarily experiencing itself as divided. This isn't an abstract philosophy but direct pointing to the fundamental nature of reality and identity. The text explains, the sense of being a separate entity with a separate purpose is itself the core illusion, the primary veil of forgetting that generates all others. This phantom self doesn't need to find its purpose. It needs to recognize itself as a temporary expression of the only purpose there's ever been: consciousness, knowing itself through infinite forms. This understanding radically transforms the entire framing of purpose. Instead of an individual seeking their unique contribution, purpose becomes universal consciousness expressing through particular forms, like waves on the ocean that appear separate but are never actually distinct from the water itself. The text elaborates, just as waves aren't separate entities but temporary expressions of ocean, your apparent separateness is a temporary expression of universal consciousness. Your purpose isn't separate from the universal purpose, it's that same purpose expressed through your particular form, circumstances, and capacities. This forbidden truth resolves many common purpose dilemmas. Why purpose can feel both uniquely individual and universally connected. Why true purpose always benefits the whole, not just the individual. Why purpose feels both like something you discover and something that discovers you. Why purpose can never be fully captured in concepts or language, The text explains, purpose is something you possess, but something that possesses you, not a property of the phantom self, but the essential nature expressing through that temporary form. The wave doesn't have its own purpose separate from the ocean. It expresses the ocean's movement through its particular shape and momentum. This understanding doesn't negate individual uniqueness, but places it in proper context. The text clarifies, your uniqueness is real and significant not as separate entity, but as irreplaceable expression of the whole. Just as each wave expresses ocean uniquely while remaining inseparable from it, you express universal consciousness uniquely while remaining inseparable from it. This forbidden truth explains why conventional approaches to purpose often fail. The text states, seeking purpose from within the illusion of separateness can never succeed because the very framework of the search reinforces the fundamental forgetting. The separate self cannot find its purpose because that separateness itself is the primary illusion. The text then addresses why this truth remains forbidden or hidden in most traditions. This understanding threatens the very foundation of separate identity that most humans cling to for security. To directly recognize non-separation is to die psychologically before physical death, to relinquish the central organizing principle around which the phantom self constructs its reality. Many traditions hint at this truth through concepts like surrender, thy will be done, or not my will but thine, but often maintain subtle separation between individual and universal. Others explicitly maintain this separation through dualistic cosmologies that preserve distinct individual identity, even in advanced spiritual development. The text explains, partial truths about purpose abound because complete truth appears threatening to separate identity. Most teachings preserve subtle separation to maintain the comfort of the phantom self even while guiding it toward greater alignment. But ultimate freedom comes only through recognizing that what seeks purpose is itself, the primary illusion. This understanding doesn't mean individual expression becomes irrelevant. Rather, it transforms the relationship to that expression from ownership to stewardship. The text explains, when separateness dissolves, expression continues but identification with it ceases. Action flows not from personal will but from appropriate response to circumstances, like the body as hand naturally moving to scratch an itch without requiring a separate This forbidden truth resolves the paradox at the heart of purpose seeking, how purpose can feel simultaneously like the deepest expression of individual uniqueness and complete transcendence of separate self. The text states, what appears contradictory from the perspective of separation becomes coherent from the perspective of wholeness. Your uniqueness is real precisely because it is yours, it's S, the universal expressing itself in a way that only your particular form makes possible. The text then addresses the practical implications of this understanding. Recognizing non-separation doesn't eliminate practical choices or personal expression. Rather, it transforms the context of those choices from what do I want to what wants to happen through this particular form, from how can I fulfill my purpose to how can I allow purpose to fulfill itself through me. This shift doesn't lead to passivity but to more effective action flowing from wholeness rather than from the limited perspective and agenda of separate self. The text explains, action flowing from recognition of non-separation is more effective, not less, because it draws on intelligence beyond the conventional mind. It moves with, rather than against, the grain of reality. The forbidden truth culminates in a direct pointing to purpose as presence itself. Purpose isn't ultimately about doing something specific but about being so completely present that the universal expresses naturally through your particular form. In that presence, appropriate action arises spontaneously not from personal will or social conditioning but from the intelligence of life itself. This understanding brings full circle the journey we've traced through the ancient text. Purpose isn't something separate to be found, but the natural expression of universal consciousness through particular form. The text concludes this section. When the wave recognizes itself as ocean, its purpose is fulfilled not by becoming a different or better wave, but by fully being the wave it already is, no longer suffering the illusion of separate existence. Having revealed the entire framework of purpose as presented in the ancient text, we arrive at its conclusion, what it calls the invitation. This is an instruction or technique but a direct calling to recognize what has been presented, just conceptually but the text makes clear that intellectual understanding alone cannot fulfill the purpose. It describes, these words point toward truth but cannot contain it. Concepts about non-separation are still concepts, mental objects separate from the reality they attempt to describe. Only direct recognition can fulfill the pointing of these teachings. This invitation is you to believe what has been shared, but to test it directly in your own experience, to look beyond concepts and stories to the reality of your moment-by-moment existence. The text states, do you want to take these teachings as new beliefs to adopt, but as pointers directing attention toward what you can verify directly. The truth of purpose is unfound in words about reality, but in reality itself as directly experienced. The invitation unfolds in three aspects, each addressing a dimension of direct recognition. The first invitation, look without concepts. Right now, before thinking about it, What is aware of reading these words? Prior to any answer that comes as thought, what is this awareness itself? Is it limited or boundless, personal or universal, separate from what it perceives or inseparable from it? This invitation directs attention to the fundamental reality of awareness itself, not as concept but as direct experience. The text explains, before the mind creates stories about me and my life, awareness already is complete, boundless, and intimately present. This awareness isn't something you possess, but what you fundamentally are prior to all concepts of possession. The second invitation, recognize what never changes. Throughout your life, experiences have continuously changed. Emotions, sensations, circumstances, relationships. What has remained constant throughout all these changes? What has been present in every experience you've ever had, regardless of its content? This invitation points toward the unchanging background against which all changes appear, what the text calls essential nature, or the awareness that makes all experience possible. The text elaborates. This unchanging presence isn't an object you can observe, but the awareness in which all objects appear. It isn't something you experience, but that which makes all experience possible. The third invitation, allow, complete allowing for just this moment. Let everything be exactly as it is. Allow every thought, sensation, emotion, and perception precisely as it appears. Notice what happens when nothing is rejected, nothing grasped, nothing manipulated, just complete allowing of this moment exactly as it is. This invitation points toward the natural state that emerges when resistance ceases. The text explains. In complete allowing, the illusion of separate controller dissolves, revealing everything already unfolding perfectly according to its nature. Purpose isn't something separate to achieve, but what naturally expresses when artificial barriers of resistance dissolve. These three invitations aren't sequential practices, but simultaneous aspects of a single recognition, the direct experience of reality without conceptual overlay. The text emphasizes that this recognition isn't exotic or distant, but immediately available. What these invitations point to isn't hidden, dissident, or requiring special attainment. It's more obvious than obvious, more immediate than immediate, already fully present before you look for it. The text acknowledges that this recognition may initially be fleeting, obscured by habitual patterns of thinking and identification. Don't be discouraged if these invitations initially yield only brief glimpses before conceptual thinking reclaims awareness. Even momentary recognition creates an opening through which essential nature can increasingly shine. The conclusion of the ancient text offers both challenge and comfort. The truth about purpose is simultaneously the simplest and most challenging teaching. Simplest because it points to what's already fully present. Challenging because it contradicts everything the phantom self believes about reality. You need not attain this truth. You need only stop overlaying concepts upon what's already here. The final words of the text bring us back to where we began, the question of why some people never find their purpose. Those who never find purpose are those who insist on looking for it as if it were separate from themselves. But purpose isn't something you find. It's what you are when all concepts of finding and being found dissolve into direct recognition of reality as it already is. This, then, is the ultimate revelation of the ancient text, that purpose isn't a destination at the end of a long journey, but the recognition of what has been present from the beginning. Not something you achieve, but what you already are when the veils of forgetting temporarily lift, and reality recognizes itself through the particular form that appears as you. The text ends with a simple statement that serves as both conclusion and beginning. This recognition awaits you not in some distant future, in this very moment, not as new achievement, but as oldest friend. Not as extraordinary attainment, but as most natural state. Look without concepts, recognize what never changes, allow complete allowing, and purpose reveals itself not as something found, but as what you have always been. We've explored an ancient wisdom tradition that completely reframes our understanding of purpose, revealing why some people search their entire lives yet never find what they're looking for. Through the veils of forgetting, we've seen how purpose becomes obscured by societal conditioning, false identity, and spiritual amnesia. We've learned about the illusion of purpose as something external to find rather than an internal reality to remember. We've explored the 9 remembrances that pierce these veils and the 7 gateways through which purpose naturally expresses in everyday life. We've examined purpose through a quantum lens, understanding why conventional approaches fail to capture its paradoxical nature. We've mapped the process of awakening, from initial disturbance through disorientation and discovery to ongoing integration. We've identified the essential practice of presence that serves as the foundation for all authentic purpose work. And finally, we've encountered the forbidden truth that the very sense of separate selfhood seeking purpose is itself the primary illusion, that purpose isn't something a separate self possesses, but universal consciousness expressing through particular form. This ancient wisdom doesn't promise immediate clarity or perfect expression. The veils of forgetting are thick, and their dissolution requires ongoing practice and patience. But it does promise that what you seek is already present, already expressing, already alive within you, waiting not to be found but to be remembered. The journey of purpose isn't about becoming someone new, but recognizing who you've been all along. beneath layers of forgetting. It isn't about achieving something impressive, but expressing something essential. It isn't about finding direction for the future, but being fully present right now. This isn't just abstract philosophy, but practical wisdom that transforms how we live. When purpose shifts from distant goal to present reality, every moment becomes an opportunity for authentic expression, regardless of external circumstances or achievements. Remember who you are, and purpose is no longer something to find, but something to live, not tomorrow, but now. Not partially, but wholly. Not despite limitations, but through them. This remembrance is both the journey and the destination, both the seeking and the finding, both the question and the answer to why some find purpose while others search forever.